Communications Officer Yoon Subin stepped forward on the screen, holding a datapad that seemed ordinary but contained ideas that would reshape galactic civilization. Admiral Kethvar, honored fleet commanders, she began formally. Humanity proposes the following: immediate cessation of hostilities, establishment of diplomatic relations, and the creation of joint research programs to advance our mutual understanding of the universe. The words hung in space like a bridge across an impossible gap. Admiral Kethvar stared at the young human woman who had just offered friendship to a fleet that had come to destroy her world. Joint research? Captain Zilrak's voice carried disbelief. You've just proven that your science is centuries ahead of ours. What could we possibly offer you? Dr. Park Ji-won returned to the screen, her scientist's enthusiasm beginning to show. Captain Zilrak, your question shows exactly why we need to work together. You're thinking about this all wrong. She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display changed to show a complex diagram that looked like a three-dimensional spiderweb made of light. This is a map of what we call the quantum foam, the basic structure that underlies all reality. We've learned to manipulate it, yes, but we've only explored perhaps 1% of its possibilities. Every species thinks differently, sees patterns that others miss, asks questions that wouldn't occur to anyone else. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho joined her at the display. For example, Admiral, your species has 4 arms and compound eyes. Your brains are structured completely differently from ours. When you look at quantum mathematics, you might see solutions that are invisible to us. The idea was staggering. Captain Morden spoke slowly. You're saying that our biological differences could lead to scientific breakthroughs? Not just biological differences, Chief Engineer Kim Tae-sung said, appearing on the screen. Cultural differences, philosophical differences, different ways of understanding existence itself. The hegemony's crystal-based technology, the Federation's bioengineering, the Dominion's energy manipulation, all of these approaches could unlock secrets of the 11-dimensional universe that we'd never discover alone. Admiral Kethvar felt his mind reeling. He'd commanded fleets, conquered worlds, spent his entire life believing that strength came from domination. Now these humans were suggesting that true strength came from cooperation, from combining different kinds of knowledge. Captain Lee, he said carefully, you're proposing that we abandon our plan to subjugate humanity in favor of learning from each other? I'm proposing that we abandon the idea that one species must dominate others, Captain Lee replied. Admiral, your civilization has been stuck at roughly the same level of technology for thousands of years, hasn't it? Small improvements, better weapons, more efficient ships, but no fundamental breakthroughs. The accuracy of the statement was uncomfortable. It was true, galactic science had plateaued long ago. Progress was measured in tiny increments, not revolutionary discoveries. Dr. Song Hai-rin appeared next to Captain Lee. That's because you've been competing instead of collaborating. Think about it. When did your species make their greatest discoveries? Was it during wars or during times of peace when different groups worked together? The question hit home. Kethvar remembered his own people's history. Their golden age of discovery had come during the Great Peace, when different nations shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. But how do we know this isn't a trick? Captain Veltar's replacement asked from one of the Dominion ships. How do we know you won't use our knowledge against us? Engineer Lim So-young laughed, and the sound was surprisingly warm. Commander, we could destroy your entire fleet in less than an hour. If we wanted to conquer you, we'd have done it already. We're offering cooperation because we believe it's better than conquest for everyone involved. Captain Lee leaned forward slightly. Let me show you what I mean, Admiral. The screen shifted to show the wreckage of the Worldbreaker, still glowing as it dispersed into space. But instead of destruction, Captain Lee pointed to something else, small objects moving among the debris. Those are our rescue drones, he explained. They're collecting the escape pods and life signs from your destroyed ship. Every survivor will be brought aboard our vessel, given medical treatment, and returned to your fleet unharmed. The simple humanity of the act struck the alien commanders like a physical blow. In the middle of a confrontation that could decide the fate of civilizations, the humans were rescuing their enemies. Why? Admiral Kethvar asked quietly. Because they're people, Captain Lee said simply. Because every life has value. Because the universe is vast and dangerous enough without us making it worse for each other. Officer Nam Ji-hai stepped into view. Admiral, Our sensors are detecting something interesting about your fleet. You have ships from 12 different species, but each group is using completely different technologies. Has anyone ever tried to combine them? Combine them? Captain Zilrak asked. Our technologies aren't compatible. Not compatible in normal space, Dr. Park corrected. But in 11-dimensional space, the rules are different. Technologies that can't work together in 4 dimensions might merge beautifully in 11. The implications began to dawn on the alien commanders. Weapons that combined hegemony crystal focusing with Dominion energy manipulation, shields that merged Federation bioadaptation with human dimensional phasing, ships that incorporated the best ideas from 13 different species. You're talking about rebuilding everything, Captain Morden said slowly. We're talking about building everything properly for the first time, Captain Lee replied. Admiral Kethvar, your fleet represents the pinnacle of current galactic technology. But it's the pinnacle of limited thinking. Imagine what we could build if we combined our knowledge. Engineer Kim Tae-sung brought up another display, this one showing theoretical ship designs that looked like nothing any of them had ever imagined. Vessels that seemed to be alive, made of metal and energy and something that might have been crystallized space-time itself. These are just preliminary sketches, he explained. Ships that could travel not just faster than light but outside of time itself. Vessels that could explore the spaces between galaxies or even the gaps between dimensions. The dream was intoxicating. Admiral Kethvar had spent his life thinking that conquest was the highest achievement of civilization. Now he was seeing possibilities that made conquest seem like a child's game. What about our governments? He asked. The Galactic Council sent us here to bring humanity into line. They won't accept your independence easily. Captain Lee smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Admiral, with respect, your government sent you here because they were thinking in terms of the old universe. The one where species competed for limited resources and dominated each other through force. We're offering entry into a new universe, where resources are unlimited and cooperation creates power that no single species could achieve alone. Communications Officer Yoon Soo-bin added, The question isn't whether your governments will accept our independence, Admiral. The question is whether they'll accept our invitation to join us in exploring possibilities they never dreamed of. Dr. Park stepped forward again. Admiral, we could demonstrate. Choose one ship from your fleet, any ship. We'll show you what 11-dimensional technology could do for it. No weapons, no threats, just an improvement that will make it better than it ever was. The offer hung in space between the fleets like a doorway to a new future. Admiral Kethvar looked around his bridge at officers who had come here to enforce submission and were now contemplating revolution. One ship? He asked. One ship, Captain Lee confirmed, as a gesture of trust and an example of what we could accomplish together. Admiral Kethvar closed his eyes and tried to imagine explaining this to the Galactic Council. Somehow he didn't think they'd understand, but maybe that was the point. Maybe the time for the old ways was ending, whether the Council understood it or not. Very well, Captain Lee, he said finally. Choose your ship. Show us this new universe you're offering. The course of galactic history had just changed direction, and for the first time in centuries it was changing toward something better, instead of something worse. The silence that followed the destruction of the World Breaker was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. 3,000 ships, each carrying hundreds or thousands of crew members, all staring at the space where one of their most powerful vessels had been just moments before. Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced in battle. Genuine fear. Not fear of death, that was simple and clean. This was fear of the unknown. Fear of facing something that made all his experience worthless. Captain Lee, he said slowly, I demand an explanation. What weapon did you use? What technology allows a ship that size to destroy our dreadnought? Captain Lee's image on the screen looked tired suddenly, as if the weight of what had just happened was settling on his shoulders. Admiral, what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to accept. Your science teams will want to verify everything. I understand that. Just explain, Kethvar said. Lee nodded to someone off-screen. Dr. Park, would you please explain our technology to the Admiral? The screen shifted to show a human woman in a white lab coat. Dr. Park Ji-won looked like any other scientist. Calm, intelligent, focused. Nothing about her suggested she had just witnessed the casual destruction of a massive warship. Admiral Kethvar, she began, before I explain our weapons, I need to ask you something. How do your people understand space and time? The question was so unexpected that Kethvar almost laughed. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, Dr. Park replied seriously. Your ships, your weapons, your shields. They all work in what we call normal space. 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time. All of your technology is built on that foundation. Of course it is. That's how the universe works. Dr. Park smiled sadly. That's what we thought too until about 50 years ago. Then we discovered something that changed everything. The universe isn't just 4 dimensions, Admiral. It's 11 dimensions. Most of them are folded up so small we can't see them, but they're there, and they can be manipulated. Across the fleet, science officers were recording every word. This was either the greatest breakthrough in galactic history or the most elaborate lie ever told. 11 dimensions. Kethvar repeated. You're saying you can access these hidden dimensions? Not just access them, Dr. Park explained. We can use them. Your ship fires weapons that travel through normal space. Ours fires through 11 dimensions at once. When our quantum lance hit the world breaker, it didn't just strike the hull. It struck the ship in all possible dimensions simultaneously. She paused, letting that sink in. Imagine trying to shield yourself from rain, Admiral. You hold up an umbrella and it works perfectly. Now imagine that rain is falling from above, below, left, right, forward, backward, and through 7 other directions you can't even perceive. Your umbrella becomes useless. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho, the indomitable science officer, appeared next to Dr. Park. The Worldbreaker's shields were designed to stop attacks in normal space, he explained. Our weapon attacked from directions that don't exist in normal space. The shields never even detected it. Captain Veltar's second-in-command, now in charge of the few escape pods that had made it out, called in over the communications. His voice was shaking. This is impossible. Physics doesn't work that way. Physics works exactly that way, Dr. Park replied gently. You just haven't discovered it yet. Think of it like this. If you lived your entire life in a 2-dimensional world, a world with only length and width, you wouldn't understand height. If someone from a 3-dimensional world reached down and touched your flat world, it would seem like magic to you. The implications were staggering. Chief Engineer Kim Tae-sung's voice joined the conversation from the Indomitable's engine room. Our ship doesn't just use 11-dimensional physics for weapons, Admiral. Our hull exists partially outside normal space-time. That's why your attacks couldn't damage us. You were shooting at a ship that wasn't entirely there. Admiral Kethvar felt his certainty crumbling. Everything he knew about warfare, about technology, about the natural order of the galaxy, was being rewritten in real time. This is... He started, then stopped. What was it? Impossible? Clearly not, since he'd just watched it happen. Unfair? The universe didn't care about fairness. Captain Zilrak's voice cut through his thoughts. Even if this is true, even if you have this impossible technology, you still have only one ship. We have 3,000. Surely even your advanced weapons can't destroy all of us. Captain Lee's face returned to the screen. You're right, Captain Zilrak. We couldn't destroy your entire fleet quickly. It would take us perhaps... Oh, Dr. Park, what's your estimate? Assuming they don't scatter immediately? About 40 minutes to disable or destroy all 3,000 ships, Captain. The casual way she said it made it even more terrifying. Not a boast, not a threat, just a simple calculation. However, Captain Lee continued, that's not why we're here. We didn't come to fight your fleet, Admiral. We came to change the conversation. Change the conversation? Admiral Kethvar asked. You came here to force humanity to surrender because you believed we were primitive and weak. We've demonstrated that we're not. Now we can talk as equals instead of as conqueror and victim. Engineer Lim So-young's voice came from the Indomitable's engineering section. The Admiral should know, sir, that we could have built 1,000 ships like this one. The technology isn't that expensive once you understand the science. We built one ship because we hoped one would be enough. Enough for what? Kethvar asked. Enough to start a conversation instead of a war, Captain Lee replied. Admiral, your fleet came here expecting to find a primitive world that would bow to superior force. Instead, you found a civilization that has moved beyond your current understanding of physics. What happens next is up to all of us. The bridge of Kethvar's flagship was silent except for the quiet hum of instruments. His officers looked to him for orders, but what orders could he give? Attack a ship that existed in 11 dimensions? Retreat in humiliation? Surrender to a species he'd come here to conquer? Captain Lee, he said finally, if your technology is so advanced, why haven't you conquered the galaxy already? Why wait for us to come to you? Lee's expression became thoughtful. That's an excellent question, Admiral. The answer says a lot about humanity, I think. We could have built a fleet of these ships and conquered every world in the galaxy. But why would we want to? Conquest is what you do when you can't think of anything better. We're more interested in exploration, in discovery, in understanding the universe. Dr. Song Hairin, another physicist on the Indomitable, added, Every species in your alliance has knowledge we don't have, Admiral. Art, culture, philosophy, different ways of looking at problems. Conquering you would mean losing all of that richness. We'd rather learn from you. You want to learn from us? Captain Morden's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and something that might have been hope. After we came here to destroy you? You came here because you were afraid, Captain Lee said simply. Afraid of change, afraid of losing your place in the galaxy, afraid of the unknown. We understand that. Fear makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. Officer Yoon Subin stepped into view on the communication screen. The captain asked me to prepare a formal proposal, Admiral Kethvar. Would you like to hear it? Kethvar looked around his bridge. His officers' faces showed confusion, fear, amazement, and something else, curiosity. For the first time since arriving at Earth, they were all thinking instead of just following orders. Yes, he said quietly. Let's hear your proposal. The galaxy was about to change. The only question was whether it would change through wisdom or through war. And for the first time since this confrontation began, Admiral Kethvar found himself hoping for wisdom. The Worldbreaker moved away from the main fleet like a mountain sliding through space. Captain Veltar had commanded the massive ship for 15 years and had never lost a battle. Today would not be his first defeat. His ship was a monster of metal and weapons. 5 kilometers of dark armor plating covered a hull that housed 30,000 crew members. The main guns could punch holes through asteroids. The shield generators could stop anything short of a supernova. It was the pride of the Dominion fleet and the nightmare of their enemies. Sir, his weapons officer reported. All systems are ready. Main batteries charged. Shields at maximum power. Veltar nodded as he watched the tiny human ship on his display. The Indomitable sat motionless in space, waiting. It looked so small next to his ship that he wondered if his weapons might miss it entirely. Captain, his science officer called out. I'm getting strange readings from the human vessel. Their power signature doesn't match anything in our databases. Explain. Well, sir, most ships this size generate maybe 50,000 energy units, standard for a heavy cruiser. But this ship, it's showing readings of over 2 million units. Veltar frowned. That's impossible. Check your sensors. I've run diagnostics 3 times, sir. The readings are correct. Either our sensors are completely wrong, or that little ship has the power output of a battleship 10 times its size. On the main fleet, Admiral Kethvar was getting similar reports. His science teams were baffled by what they were seeing. The human ship's energy readings made no sense. Sir, his aide whispered, maybe we should reconsider. Something feels wrong about this. Kethvar shook his head. Sensor errors. Human technology is primitive. They probably have some kind of reactor leak that's throwing off our readings. But deep inside, that tiny doubt was growing larger. Aboard the Indomitable, Captain Lee Daeho sat calmly in his command chair. His bridge was smaller than most alien ships' storage rooms, but every station was perfectly organized. His crew of 50 worked with quiet efficiency. Captain, Communications Officer Yoon Soo-bin reported, the alien ship is moving into attack position. Admiral Kethvar is demanding we prepare for combat. Thank you, Soo-bin. Send our acknowledgement. Lee turned to his chief engineer. Kim Tae-sung, how are our systems? Engineer Kim looked up from his console with a slight smile. All green, Captain. The quantum field generators are stable. The dimensional anchor is locked. We're ready for whatever they throw at us. Dr. Park, Lee called to his science officer. Final checks on the main weapon? Dr. Park Ji-won nodded from her station. The quantum lance is fully charged and calibrated. The targeting system has a perfect lock on their ship. Excellent. Lee pressed a button on his chair. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to make history. Stay calm, do your jobs, and remember that Earth is watching. Make them proud. The bridge crew responded with quiet confidence. No fear, no dramatic speeches. Just professionals doing their work. On the Worldbreaker, Captain Veltar was growing impatient. Open fire the moment we're in range. I want this over quickly. The distance between the ships shrank rapidly. Soon both vessels were within optimal weapon range. The moment had come. All ships, this is Admiral Kethvar, came the broadcast to the entire fleet. Witness the fate of those who challenge galactic authority. Captain Veltar smiled coldly. Fire all forward batteries. Maximum power. The Worldbreaker erupted in light. 6 massive energy beams lanced out from its main guns, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a city. The beams struck the tiny human ship directly, creating a brilliant explosion that lit up the surrounding space. Every alien in the fleet expected to see debris. Instead, as the light faded, the Indomitable hung in space completely undamaged, not even a scorch mark on its hull. Impossible, Veltar whispered. Fire again. All weapons. This time, every gun on the Worldbreaker opened fire. Energy beams, plasma cannons, particle weapons. Everything the ship had was aimed at the human vessel. The barrage continued for 30 seconds, enough firepower to level a continent. When the weapons finally stopped, the Indomitable was still there. Still perfect. Still undamaged. Admiral Kethvar leaned forward in his command chair, his 4 hands gripping the armrests. What are their hulls made of? He demanded. His science officer was frantically checking readings. Sir, our weapons are hitting them. The energy is making contact. But it's like it's being absorbed or redirected somehow. I don't understand the physics. On the Indomitable, Tactical Officer Nam Ji-hai looked up from her console. Captain, they've finished their attack. No damage to report. All systems normal. Captain Lee nodded. Thank you, Nam. Your turn. 1 shot, please. Yes, sir. Firing Quantum Lance. The human ship's main weapon was barely visible compared to the alien guns. Just a small port near the front of the ship. When it fired, there was no dramatic light show, no massive energy beam. Just a thin line of silver light that struck the Worldbreaker. What happened next defied everything the aliens thought they knew about space combat. The silver beam passed through the Worldbreaker shields as if they didn't exist. It struck the massive ship's hull and kept going, punching through 5 kilometers of armor plating like it was made of paper. The beam emerged from the other side of the ship and continued into space until it struck and vaporized an asteroid 50,000 kilometers away. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen to the Worldbreaker. Then slowly the massive ship began to break apart. Not exploding, not burning, just coming apart. As if the beam had somehow disconnected every atom in the ship from its neighbors. In seconds, the most powerful warship in the Dominion fleet had become an expanding cloud of glowing particles. The alien fleet fell completely silent. 30,000 of their best soldiers had just been erased by a single shot from a ship they could have stepped on. Captain Lee's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. Admiral Kethvar, we're sorry for the loss of life. That wasn't our intention. We were hoping their escape pods would have time to deploy. Kethvar couldn't speak. His most powerful ship, commanded by his best captain, had lasted exactly 43 seconds against this tiny human vessel. Sir, his aide whispered. Orders? Kethvar stared at the cloud of particles that had been the Worldbreaker. His mind was racing, trying to understand what had just happened. How was it possible? What kind of weapon could do that? What kind of science, sir? The aide asked again. Finally, Kethvar found his voice. Get me that human captain, now! The screen flickered and Captain Lee appeared again. He still looked calm, but there was something different in his eyes now. A sadness, maybe, as if he truly regretted what had just happened. Admiral, Lee said quietly, we need to talk. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar agreed completely with an enemy commander. They definitely needed to talk. Because everything he thought he knew about warfare, about physics, about humanity, had just been proven wrong. The fleet of 3,000 ships hung in space, suddenly feeling very small and very fragile. And in the distance, one tiny human ship waited patiently to explain how the universe had just changed forever. The space around Earth's solar system had never seen anything like it. 3,000 warships hung in the darkness like angry metal stars. Each ship was massive, some as long as entire cities. Their hulls gleamed with weapons that could turn planets into dust. The greatest armada in galactic history had come to humanity's doorstep. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the blue-white dot that was Earth in the distance. His forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the tactical display. Every species in the galaxy had sent their best ships. The Dominion's black dreadnoughts, the Hegemony's crystal battleships that sparkled like diamonds, the Federation's bioships that looked more grown than built. 3,000 ships, his aide whispered. The humans cannot possibly resist this. Kethavar nodded slowly. His gray skin rippled with satisfaction. For too long, humanity had been a problem. They expanded too fast. They asked too many questions. They refused to bow to their betters like every other young race did. Today that would end. The ultimatum had been sent hours ago. Simple words that carried the weight of galactic law: surrender completely or be destroyed. Every species that faced such a demand chose surrender. It was only logical. What could one world do against the combined might of 12 civilizations? "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we have a response from Earth." "Put it on the main screen," Kethavar ordered. He expected to see a human leader, probably crying, begging for mercy. Instead, the message was just text. Short and simple: "We accept your challenge. Our representative will meet your fleet at the designated coordinates." The bridge fell silent. Kethavar read the message again. Then again. His aide moved closer, confusion clear on his face. "Representative?" The aide asked. "Sir, they're not surrendering. They're accepting a challenge?" Other ship commanders began calling in. Captain Zilrak of the Hegemony sounded angry. "What game are the humans playing? Do they think this is some kind of negotiation?" Captain Morden from the Federation was laughing. "Maybe they're sending an ambassador, someone to formally surrender in person. These humans do love their ceremonies." But Admiral Veltar of the Dominion's Second Fleet was not amused. "This feels wrong. No species acts like this when facing annihilation. What are they planning?" Kethavar studied the message one more time. Challenge, not surrender. Not plea for mercy. Challenge. As if humanity thought they had something to offer in return. "Sir," the sensor officer reported, "we're detecting a hyperspace signature. Something's coming." Every weapon in the fleet turned toward the emergence point. Kethavar felt his hearts beating faster. What were the humans sending? A massive battleship? Their entire remaining fleet in a desperate last charge? The hyperspace window opened with a flash of white light. And out came, "That's it?" Captain Zilrak's voice crackled over the communications. That's their response? The human ship was tiny. Compared to the massive alien vessels surrounding it, it looked like a child's toy. The largest ships in the fleet were 5 kilometers long. This human ship was barely 1 kilometer. It had a simple design, nothing fancy. Just a long hull with some weapon ports and engine pods. It looked like something used for patrol duty, not war. "Scan it," Kethavar ordered. "How many ships are with it?" "Sir." "That's it. Just the one ship." "I'm reading 50 life signs aboard." "50?" Kethavar's aide gasped. "Sir, we have 300,000 soldiers in this fleet." "They sent 50 people?" The human ship moved slowly toward the fleet, showing no fear. Its engines glowed a soft blue, and it transmitted a simple message. UES Indomitable requesting permission to approach for diplomatic contact. Diplomatic contact. Kethavar almost laughed. Did these humans think they were here for a conversation? "Admiral," Captain Veltar called from his ship. "This has to be a trick. Maybe the ship is packed with explosives. A suicide mission. Or maybe," Captain Morden suggested, "they really are here to surrender and want to do it properly." Kethavar considered both options. A suicide ship wouldn't get close enough to damage more than a few vessels. And if they wanted to surrender, well, that was why the fleet had come here in the first place. "Open a channel to the human ship," he ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the human vessel. The captain was a young-looking human male with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no fancy decorations. Behind him, Kethavar could see other humans working at various stations. They all looked so normal. Not afraid, not desperate, just calm. "I am Admiral Kethavar of the Galactic Coalition Fleet," he began. "You face 3,000 warships carrying the authority of 12 civilizations. You have 1 ship and 50 people. Explain yourselves." The human captain smiled slightly. "Captain Lee Daho of the United Earthship Indomitable. We received your ultimatum, Admiral. We're here to discuss terms." "Terms?" Kethavar's voice rose. "You are in no position to discuss terms. You will surrender unconditionally, or we will destroy your homeworld." "We understand your position," Captain Lee said calmly. "But we have a different proposal. A simple test of capability. One of your ships against ours. Winner takes all." The bridge erupted in shocked voices from various ship commanders. Captain Zilrak was shouting about human arrogance. Captain Morden was laughing so hard he could barely speak. Captain Veltar was demanding immediate attack. Kethvar raised his hand for silence. This was beyond insulting. It was insanity. One human ship wanted to fight one of his vessels? He had ships that could crack moons in half. You want single combat? He asked. One ship versus one ship? That's right, Captain Lee nodded. If we lose, humanity will accept whatever terms you set. If we win, your fleet leaves our space and we negotiate as equals. The sheer audacity of it left Kethvar speechless for a moment. Then he began to smile. This was perfect. The humans wanted to be humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. Very well. He would give them exactly what they asked for. Very well, Captain Lee. I accept your challenge. I will send our most powerful ship against yours. When it's finished, there won't be enough left of your vessel to bury. Captain Lee's expression never changed. We understand the stakes, Admiral. We'll be ready when you are. The channel closed and Kethvar turned to his aide. Contact the Worldbreaker. Tell Captain Veltar he has the honor of ending this farce, and make sure every ship records this battle. The galaxy needs to see what happens to those who defy us. As the orders went out, Kethvar watched the small human ship maintain its position. No fear. No desperate last-minute attempts to flee. Just calm waiting. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Admiral Kethvar felt a tiny doubt creep into his mind. But he pushed it away. 3,000 ships versus one. Mathematics didn't lie, and neither did physics. This would be over quickly. He had no idea how right and how wrong he was. Admiral Kethvar chose the Crystal Dawn, Captain Morden's Federation bioship. It was a beautiful vessel, grown rather than built, its living hull rippling with organic patterns that pulsed with its own heartbeat. The ship had served for 30 years, adapting and evolving, but always within the limits of normal spacetime. Captain Morden, Captain Lee said over the communication channel, please bring your ship alongside ours. We'll need physical contact for the dimensional interface. Physical contact? Morden asked nervously. You're not going to do to my ship what you did to the Worldbreaker, are you? Dr. Park Ji-won smiled reassuringly. Captain, we're going to do the exact opposite. Instead of destroying, we're going to enhance. The Crystal Dawn moved slowly toward the Indomitable. As the ships drew closer, something remarkable began to happen. The space around both vessels started to shimmer, as if reality itself was bending. Admiral, the sensor officer on Kethvar's flagship reported in an awed voice, I'm reading energy patterns I've never seen before. It's like space is becoming liquid around them. Engineer Kim Tae-sung's voice came over the fleet communication system, explaining what everyone was seeing. We're creating a localized field where the barriers between dimensions become permeable. Think of it as opening a door between what is and what could be. The two ships made contact and the effect was immediate and beautiful. Where the Indomitable's hull touched the Crystal Dawn, patterns of light began to spread across both vessels. The human ship's metal hull started to show organic swirls, while the bioship's living surface began to display geometric patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions the eye couldn't follow. What's happening to my ship? Captain Morden asked, but his voice carried wonder rather than fear. It's evolving, Chief Engineer Lim So-young explained. Our dimensional technology is interfacing with your biotech. Your ship is learning to exist in 11 dimensions instead of just 4. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho added technical details that fascinated the fleet's science officers. The bioneural networks in your ship are naturally quantum in nature, Captain Morden. They were always capable of 11-dimensional processing, but they were constrained by 4-dimensional physics. We're simply removing those constraints. The transformation took 20 minutes. When the ships separated, the Crystal Dawn was still recognizably the same vessel, but it had become something more. Its hull seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. Patterns of light flowed across its surface in directions that hurt to look at directly. Captain Mordun, Dr. Song Haerin called out, please try a hyperspace jump to any coordinates you choose. Any coordinates? Morden asked, but we haven't calculated a jump path or charged our hyperspace engines. Trust us, Captain Lee said quietly. Captain Mordun hesitated for a moment, then gave the order. The Crystal Dawn simply disappeared. Not the usual flash of light and fold in space that marked a hyperspace jump, but an instant transition from being there to being somewhere else. Where did he go? Admiral Kethvar demanded. Everywhere. Officer Namji-hai replied from the Indomitable, and nowhere. He's existing in all possible locations simultaneously until he chooses one to collapse into. Before anyone could ask what that meant, the crystal dawn reappeared, not where it had been, but next to a star system 20 light-years away. The fleet's long-range sensors confirmed it instantly. Impossible, Captain Zilrak whispered. It takes our fastest ship 6 hours to travel that distance. In normal space, yes, Dr. Park agreed. But Captain Morden's ship just traveled through 11 dimensions. Distance works differently when you can take shortcuts through folded space-time. The crystal dawn disappeared again, and reappeared next to the fleet, having made the return journey in the same instant. Captain Morden, Admiral Kethvar called out. Report! Morden's voice came back filled with amazement. Admiral, I don't know how to describe it. My ship. It's alive in ways it never was before. I can feel the quantum foam, see the paths between stars, sense the connections between all things. It's like suddenly being able to see color after a lifetime of blindness. The demonstration had done what words couldn't. Every commander in the fleet could see the potential, could imagine their own ships enhanced with this impossible technology. This is what we're offering, Captain Lee said to the assembled fleet. Not domination, not conquest, but transformation. Not just of your ships, but of your entire understanding of what's possible. Ambassador Kang Yujin appeared on the screen for the first time, an older human woman with kind eyes and a diplomatic bearing. Honored commanders, I've just arrived aboard the Indomitable to begin formal negotiations. But before we discuss treaties and agreements, I want you to understand what humanity is really offering. She gestured, and the display showed images of Earth, not the military installations the fleet had expected to find, but cities floating in the clouds, forests that grew in impossible spirals, oceans that reflected stars from other dimensions. This is what our world has become since we learned to work with 11-dimensional physics. Not just more powerful, but more beautiful, more alive, more connected to the fundamental forces of existence. The images shifted to show humans working alongside beings that looked like living equations, creatures made of crystallized time, entities that existed as pure thought given form. We're not alone in this new universe, Ambassador Kang continued. There are other species, other civilizations that have made this same leap. They're waiting to meet you, to share their knowledge, to learn from your unique perspectives. Admiral Kethvar felt the last of his certainty crumble away. The choice before him was clear. Return to the Galactic Council with news of failure and face their wrath, or step forward into a future that promised wonders beyond imagination. Ambassador, he said slowly, what exactly are you proposing? A new alliance, she replied simply. Not based on domination or submission, but on mutual growth and exploration. Each species contributing their unique gifts to our collective understanding. Captain Zilrak spoke up from his ship. What about our governments? The Galactic Council won't simply accept that we've joined with humanity. Captain Lee's expression became thoughtful. Captain, the Council represents the old way of thinking. Competition, scarcity, zero-sum games. But we're offering abundance. When you return to your worlds with ships that can travel instantly across the galaxy, with technology that can create whatever resources you need, with knowledge that opens doors to infinite possibilities. Do you think your people will choose to stay limited? The question hung in space like a seed waiting to sprout. Engineer Kim Tae-sung added, change doesn't happen all at once. It starts with a few people who see a better way and have the courage to try it. Dr. Park stepped forward one final time. Gentlemen, we're offering you the chance to be pioneers in the truest sense. Not conquerors of territory, but explorers of possibility itself. Admiral Kethvar looked around at his fleet. 3,000 ships that had come to enforce the old order, and were now faced with the opportunity to help create a new one. The choice was his to make, but he already knew what it would be. Captain Lee, he said formally, Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Coalition, fleet requests permission to begin. Diplomatic negotiations regarding humanity's proposal for alliance and mutual advancement. The words that came back would be remembered throughout galactic history. Permission granted, Admiral. Welcome to the future. The fleet that had come expecting a battle had instead found something far more valuable. Hope. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in millennia, that was a reason to celebrate rather than fear. In the distance, Earth continued to spin peacefully in its orbit, no longer an isolated world, but the first step on a journey that would lead 13 species, and eventually many more, toward a destiny none of them could have imagined alone. The age of conquest was ending. The age of exploration had begun, and it all started because humanity had sent just one ship to change everything.